Good morning. And so as you heard, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the importance of data. And maybe you think I'm preaching to the converted, I may be. But before I go into my talk, I wanted to, I found this when I was looking at where we were coming today. And I love the quote, by the way, the purpose of the German Hygiene Museum is to persuade lazy, ignorant, and indifferent people, to look after their own health. And I wondered, is it your job to persuade lazy, indifferent, and ignorant people to do other things? I am in no way inferring that that is what you are, but what I would like to focus on today is how, to me, you are important, very important players in the world of research data management, the importance of data, and in the time that we are in now, it's ever more important. So I want to talk through that with you. I also thought it was quite nice, actually, because this is an article from 1930 in Time, and it shows that they have done some amazing work on archiving metadata, etc. So it's a good example as well. So no data, no party. To get started, I'd like to understand, I'm going to ask you a question, nothing too taxing, just a show of hands, so I can understand a little the audience. So how many of you believe that data is very important? I have three questions. It's somewhat, or not at all. So those of you who believe it's the data aspect, research data management, without the data, there's no good science, there's no good outcomes for society. How many of you believe that that's really important? Oh, wow. How many of you believe that it's somewhat important, but there are more other things? Okay, fair enough. And not important at all. And for those of you online, there are no hands now. So excellent. So that's good. Though I could almost say, right, you know what I'm going to say. So you think it's very important. But in all seriousness, we know it's important. And actually, what I wanted to do was start by congratulating you and your colleagues in the environmental, if you like, sciences, the earth sciences field, that actually in a recent study about how different domains and disciplines were doing in sharing data and also adhering to the famous FAIR principles of findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability, that actually environmental science is leading way beyond everyone else. So if you see there, the blue line is about the FAIR data sharing, which is complex, we know, costly, and not as simple as it looks. And then the yellow bar is data sharing in general. So that's very, very positive. There's a blank screen. I don't know what that is for. Sorry. So on that note, we need to toast. This is a data party, right? You are in my opinion, the organizers of this data party. And so we need to toast also to the success of your community. But I also want to ask you then to improve that. So why is it not 100%? If you are traditionally good data sharers, and what can you do as well to ensure that actually this becomes more commonplace with the other domains and disciplines? And it may not be so obvious, and you think, well, I've enough to do, thank you, in my own domain, in my own discipline, in my own work. But remember that data is a public good, that well-managed data is of true value and importance, and that by having access to different types of data, being able to share and reuse data from different disciplines can lead to only good in society if it is responsibly shared. So I would say that you are lighthouses in this field, that you are beacons, if you like, of light in a shadowed data world. And I'll talk a little bit about the current situation in a moment. So we need to ensure that data management practices are commonplace, that they are core to the work that is done and that to science and research. So I'm asking you for your help, but I also want to tell you a little how we can help. So I have the great privilege and honor of being the Secretary General of the Research Data Alliance. Why is it a privilege and an honor? Because I represent a group of over 15,000 members from across the globe who believe that working together, that collaborating together to find solutions for research data management, for open science, is the right way to go. They believe in collaboration. They believe in consensus. They believe in working together and sharing their outputs so that others can benefit from them. So you can understand why I get quite emotional about it, because it really is an amazing group of people. It's all volunteer. It's all bottom up. The community decides what they want to do. We facilitate it and try to highlight it and do some support framework around it. But it really is a truly wonderful community. And I'd like to ask, how many of you are Research Data Alliance members? And for those of you online, there's about 4 hands showing. Right, well, we'll see if we can change that towards the end. And it may not actually be you that needs to be the member, but maybe there are people in your institutions, and I'll talk about the responsibility in a while. But what is the Research Data Alliance and why was it set up? We have a very ambitious vision. Yeah, the vision for the Research Data Alliance is that researchers and innovators can openly share data across disciplines, across countries, and across technologies to solve the grand challenges of society. Yeah, so any discipline, any country, any technology. That's really quite complex. It's very ambitious. And what we do is we build the social and the technical bridges to achieve that vision. And we place equal importance on the social aspect as we do on the technical. The technical are the outputs, the best practices, the standards, the different pieces of work that the over 100 active groups are producing. And the social is this amazing network of people who come from many, many different areas, but are all, as I said, passionate and interested in the same thing. We have guiding principles. When it was set up, the Research Data Alliance, it's very important that everything we do is open and that there's openness and inclusivity. Everyone is welcome. We are driven by consensus. Sometimes that can be a little slower, but it's very important. All voices must be heard. We believe in harmonization. Yes, so I'll give you a very concrete example of harmonization. Data repositories. When the Research Data Alliance was formed or started in 2013, there were 2 different certification systems for data repositories. One was run by the World Data System and the other by the Data Seal of Approval. And they were similar, but not quite the same. And this was causing undue effort and confusion for data repositories. So which is the better one to choose? What should we do? So under the umbrella of the Research Data Alliance, an independent organization, because we are community driven, they came together and they formed one certification system, the Core Trust Seal. And therefore, they reduced the number of standards in the world by 1 and made life an awful lot simpler for the data repository. So that's an example of harmonization. I said it was community driven and it's non-profit and technology neutral, and that means that all the outputs that the community produces must not have any technology lock-in. They must be open. Of course, they can then be customized and integrated into more commercial systems, but they must be available for all. So I wanted to go back and put a little bit into context where we are now, because we say that, data management, no, it's more recent, but actually, according to this, it's 65 years old. The concepts around data management are over 65 years old. So if I think of that, I think we could be doing a lot better in certain ways. But I'm not going to make you go back 65 years. I will just go back 15 years, the year of the Icelandic explosion or the volcano where we weren't able to travel around Europe and other parts of the world. The iPad was launched, by the way. The world's tallest at that time tower was built in Dubai, and Instagram was formed. When I told my children this, they looked at me, Mom. But why 2010? So 2010, the European Commission commissioned a report, a high-level report, and a high-level report means that it is going to go to the commissioners, to the Parliament, to the policymakers. And the high-level report was around riding the wave, how they could capture the rising tide of scientific data. And as you can see there from an extract, and the link, I will share the slides with some text afterwards, so you're able to access them. But I would recommend, it's a very high-level glossy report, but it has some really interesting observations, use cases, and recommendations. And at that time, if you look at the first quote, actually, and you remember a little what I said about our vision, they're quite similar wording. It's no surprise that actually the Research Data Alliance was being planned and launched around that time, and it is as a direct result from this. But just to look into the recommendations, so this was a 20-year vision. So it was launched in 2010, and by 2030, we were going to have a whole series of things, including an international framework for collaborative data infrastructure, and the little, if you can see them, boxes there say more or less the status of where we are. I think that the common, by the way, idea and agreement is that we don't need one thing that fits all. That's not the best approach, but we are doing not so badly for different collaborative data infrastructures across the globe. Think of the European Open Science Cloud, think of the Australian Research Data Commons, think of the African Open Science Platform. So there are collaborative data infrastructures that exist, but one international one doesn't exist. An international framework, I would say the closest thing that the Research Data Alliance is coming to is the Global Open Research Commons framework, which is a very important and useful framework, not just for geographically based data infrastructures, but actually also for thematic infrastructures. And it gives you an understanding of the different components. And this has been done by sharing and working very much on a global scale with many, many different infrastructures, the components that are required, and a different framework for it. So earmarking additional funds for scientific e-infrastructure, I think that's not so bad. It's done quite well, but we could always use more funding, as we know. I think that all the activities around the evaluation of research, the research assessment, COADA, for those of you who are familiar with it, the Coalition on Advancing Research Assessment, they're doing good work, and there's a lot of funding being invested in that. And this concept of rewarding the people that are actually central to the excellent science, but are not traditionally recognized by it. So that's good. Training a new generation of data scientists and broadening public understanding. We are now on a wave that we could do much more about that, particularly the latter part around with the whole AI movement, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's good investment in data scientists, but not as much, I think, as we need. And then incentives for green technologies and data infrastructure, certainly in certain parts of the world, that's very good. And there is a high-level interministerial group on global level for open data infrastructure. So it's not so bad, but, we're 15 years in, there's 5 years to go. So it's a little surprising that we're not in as good a place as we should be. I had the great honour and privilege also of being a member of the programme committee for the International Conference on Research Infrastructures, which was held in Australia last year. It's by every 2 years. It's organised. It's funded by the European Commission in partnership with other countries around the globe. Every second edition is held outside of Europe. And I was very encouraged to see that data was much more core, but I was to the discussions. We had a specific track on digital research infrastructures, but unfortunately, data is not as important to if you like, the research infrastructures as it could be. That does depend, I would say, and it's only fair to say, from, if you like, domain and discipline to discipline or area, but we could do a lot more. And if you're interested, the next edition in 2026 will be in Italy and Europe, so you might have an opportunity to go. It's a great, actually, and a very global conference that I believe is very, very important and very interesting to see. And then we come to the AI, artificial intelligence conundrum, and I mentioned it before because it's everybody's talking about it. It's mainstream news in the obviously in the media, etc. It has some good and some bad press coverage, as we know. I think the majority of people, when they talk about AI, they think about ChatGPT and the use of different AI bots to help them with textual or other types of searches. They're sort of speedy Google, if I could use that. But what I want to talk more about is AI with respect to science. And we recently ran some work, and I loved this analogy because one of my very esteemed members of the RDA said, oh yeah, the Wild West is a great analogy for the current artificial intelligence landscape. So it's, lawlessness, gold rushes, suppression of non-English cultures, and think about that, and setting a frontier with challenges that are poorly understood. Yeah, and I think it's a very good analogy for the current situation with AI, particularly for AI in research and in science, and the multi-track area that we could find ourselves in. So and I will tell you what the RDA is doing about it, but we also have an opportunity. I think we should see AI as an opportunity. It can definitely be helpful and supportive in science and in research, but what goes in comes out, and the famous garbage in, garbage out, or as I like to say, quality in, quality out. So it's really important that the data is well structured, that the data is as fair as possible. And I know I won't go into how to verify data today, but fair is complex, fair is costly, but fair is fundamental. And actually, yesterday, after his amazing talk, those of you who were here yesterday morning, I really enjoyed Dirk's talk. I did ask him about the data because there were so many enthusiastic questions, I wasn't able to. But I asked him about the data and is all their data open and, fair? He said that the majority of it is, which is quite amazing considering, health and medical sciences. It's a very challenging data, as we know, to make it as open as possible. And at a huge cost, he told me. It's a huge cost. And yet, of course, because it's underlying principle of his institution, but of many of the public and institutions and academia, it is a costly endeavor, but it's really important because, of course, we need to know where the data is coming from, where it's going, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the Research Data Alliance doing about that? Well, I have to be honest with you, last year I was a little surprised because we only had one group really that's working on, we have the Fair for Machine Learning group, we have other different groups, but there wasn't a huge amount or that much notice, and I would have expected the community to do more work. We've just the ethics, the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Group, that's their name, have just released a Bill of Rights around AI, and it's just being approved as a sort of, if you like, best practice or standard in the RDA terms. But so last September, we sort of started to ask the community, well, how do you feel about the use of AI in research, and how are you using it? What do you think about it? And we did what we called our AI in action activities. Then we went on to do a series of workshops, and we did a collaboration with Microsoft on roundtables around AI, data readiness for AI. And just recently, the European Commission asked for a call for evidence on AI in science. And I felt that it was important to represent the Research Data Alliance community in that response. So we came up with these 4 or 5, different areas. So, of course, that investment should be made in data for AI and software and fair for AI, data, software and fair research outputs for AI. Yeah, so a lot more work into the standards, into the metadata aspects and things like that, and to ensure the reproducibility and the transparency, of data. The ethics, the policy, and the governance. Ethics is just so core to the whole AI for research and being used in research. So the whole aspect of ethical and responsible data. Policies, yes. Governance, hugely important, but not to be confused, by the way, with regulating things that, while it's important to have it, it also in some way suppresses innovation. So getting the balance right there. Of course, the skills. You cannot expect, and many of you, I assume, many researchers and scientists are the ones that are tasked with actually doing the research data management. And years ago, but I haven't seen changes to the statistic, they used to say that scientists spent 80% of their time data wrangling or data cleaning or data housekeeping, and 20% on research and science. If that is true, that is a dreadful shame, and that is not how it should be. You should be, yes, able to manage your data, understand concepts around research data management, but you need the support structure and the professionals to help you with that. So skills for responsible AI. A very big challenge will be the digital divide. There are, many resources being invested for many reasons, as we know, both public now, but also huge private investment in certain parts of the world. This is only going to get worse. And the digital divide is not just geographical, it is linguistic as well. And many of the experts that came to share their thoughts and we'll be producing white papers on these from the round table, said that, the linguistic aspect of AI is pretty poor as well. So in addition to, if you like, the geographical divide, those with the resources compared to those who don't have the resources, we also have the challenge of the language aspects. And then, of course, investments in the innovation of AI and infrastructure to support that. So these were the recommendations we made to the European Commission. Of course, the white paper will go out to be available. So, many challenges and more challenges. Not to burst the balloon of this data party, but I do want to address a little bit what is happening on a financial and political level. It's very clear to everybody. I think that it's very affecting many areas of work, and we already saw the funding cuts that were happening in the US, and that started last year, and now we're beginning to see the real impact on what that means for the researchers, not just for jobs, but the access to data. Of course, it's not the only place in the world. In fact, on last week, a very large group of Argentinian researchers were out protesting. I was in Argentina this time last year on our tour of Latin America to work with them. And already in Argentina, they were facing severe challenges. They have had massive budget cuts. Science is so far down the whatever the priority list. It is quite unfathomable, and I understand that it's 0.15 of the GDP will be in a country that was already suffering from low resources invested in science. So we have challenges in other parts of the world, not just in the US. And by the way, they do amazing work with very little. You need brave, courageous people. Yeah. In a time like this, you need brave, courageous people. You need people who stand up for science, and showing your face and putting your name to something is, as we are watching and witnessing on the news today, something that is quite risky. So I was really heartened to see that many of the NIH staff, and when I looked last night, 17,000 people have actually supported this letter, where they openly write to their new director in underlining the importance of science, of research, of data, of staff, of personnel in this very difficult challenge. It's also true that, the US is getting a lot of visibility. So we need to do something about that. We need to ride that wave, I believe, if we really truly believe that science and research are important. It's not the first time that it has happened, but how many more times then do we need it to happen before we do something? And I mean, what is the RDA going to do about it? I'll tell you in a moment, but the research or the data rescue project, which is quite interesting, and I would invite you all to go and see it. They are coordinating and communicating and trying to save US federal data. They are putting their faces out there. It's a very open, by the way, project where they are making backups of all the data sets and trying to support this possible disappearance and non-access to important data sets that come from the earth and environmental sciences, and data that is often time-stamped, etc. So we won't be replicating that data. Yeah, we won't be getting it back if it gets lost. So it's really quite important for something to be done. But then you might say, okay, well, fair enough. But if all these challenges, is it not better just to keep it on our servers and on our laptops? And then we solve this problem. No, don't have to invest the time. Don't have to worry about it disappearing. But that's not good science. It's not excellent science. And you can't share your work and get access to other data, if we don't really believe and follow the principles of open science and what is good. Yeah. So as I said, I believe that you are lighthouses. You are agents for change. And when I looked up the Association for Geographical Information laboratories in Europe, I saw that you practically have, in my opinion, not just the whole of Europe, but the whole world in your hands. Yeah, for the different areas that you cover and the different things that you do. So you have an opportunity and a responsibility to do this. And I imagine that when you decided to get into this field, you didn't do it for the fortune, did you? You probably did it. The fame is something, but fortune, no. I would like to believe, I hope, that you believe that you can make a difference, that you can actually make the world a better place with your different activities and your discoveries and your research and your science. I sat yesterday in not just Dirk's talk, but in others, listening to all the wonderful activities that you're doing. So you do have an opportunity and a place in this to make you feel better as well. I wanted to say that actually, as a reward for environmental scientists and geoscience, if you like, openness, as I showed you with the slide at the beginning in the graph, where you're 80% of data sharing and 60% of which is fair data. Actually, a recent study found that as a result of this study, the IOP Publishing decided to reward you with insisting that data is actually made accessible in publications. But this is important, by the way, because we do have data availability statements. Yeah, many journals are now and publishers are coming with that. But data availability statements are just box checking, and when you look into in depth into that, in many cases, actually the data is not really available, or it's hard to find, or nobody responds, etc., etc. So it's important that the ecosystem, the key players, that everybody who's involved, and it's not just you, by the way, I will tell you how everybody else needs to step up to make this better. But it's important that the publishers are also demanding, if you like, or insisting as part now of the work. On the other hand, it's true that the spotlight must also go. It can't just be the people, the scientists and the researchers submitting papers that have to be responsible for the data. The papers themselves, the publishers themselves, need also to provide infrastructure and support for that. And this paper is interesting because it actually is focused on German learned societies and associations, 31 of them. And I think it's 12, if you like, have absolutely no data sharing policy at all. And when asked why that was, it was actually because it's challenging to come up with data policies and frameworks that actually work. So we have a group in the Research Data Alliance, the Research Data Policy Interest Group. They came up with a simple but important framework for journal policies to assist publishers in this area. And why I want to highlight it is that sometimes the publishers are seen as the big bad wolves, and I don't want to go into that discussion here today. But what in this case, they actually collaborated with the community, with those that are supporting research data management in institutions, to come up with this framework. So it's a collaborative effort. It's not the publisher saying, this is the framework, let's just, you all adhere to it. So, as I said, remember, back to how wonderful you are. And then as I sort of conclude my talk this morning, I want to talk a little about the responsibility. So who's accountable? What role and responsibility does everyone have? And we often think, well, it's somebody else's, the funders, and they should give us the money, or it's the institution. I'm afraid it's a collective responsibility. And it's my job, as well as the community's job, to ensure that everyone, if you like, is held accountable or understands what their responsibility is. And as you can see in this boat, it can't just be the little ones at the back bailing it out. So what about governments, policymakers and funders? Well, we believe that they need to mandate open science in a very serious way. And it's not just putting it in, you must do it. It's not box checking. Yeah. And while I'm a wonderful and very serious supporter of the open science and fair principles in European projects, for example, which are mandated, who is policing that? So it's great to say that, 90% of the projects are actually making their open science. Nobody's checking it. So this must be serious, invested money, but we must also make sure that it's carried through. So they need to mandate it. They need to fund it, the funders and the policymakers and the governments. And they must data must also be serious. There are costs to making data fair. There are costs to long-term sustainability, curation and preservation of data. They're not insignificant, but we know that they invest a lot of money in infrastructures around the world and and so we need to invest in the whole ecosystem around Europe. So the call to the funders and the policymakers is that. Universities and research performing organizations, they need to provide the infrastructure. They need to find the way and to make also data core there, not just as part of an infrastructure or service, but also in making available the professionals, the data experts that are required to support the scientists and the researchers, the libraries and the information managers as well, because in many cases, they are really, really core in an institution, but they need the resources and the staff to do this. Yeah. Research infrastructures, they need to make data a bit more core to their business. I believe it's something like under 10% of the money that go to research infrastructures is focused on the data aspect, be that in terms of staff or support services for that. So it's not okay. Yeah, it's not okay if data is to be part of the party. I talked about the publishers. They have a responsibility in many, many ways. I gave you an example of the journal policies and all that sort of area. Repositories, of course, to be trustworthy, to be certified, so that we can ensure that the data that is deposited, that the researchers, the scientists that deposit that data feel confident that there is long-term sustainability, curation and preservation of that data. Yes, because that's the quality in and the quality out of the AI. Libraries and information management, we work with a lot of them. It's one of our largest groups in the Research Data Alliance, by the way, the Libraries for Research Data. And they're tasked with so many different activities. And I spent some time in Australia at the end of last year doing a tour and speaking to many librarians and sitting in on many of these sort of faculty and student, they call them, what do they call them? Bazaars or something, or resbaz, that's it, the research bazaar. And I was so disheartened to see that, there are one, maybe two people, and they are responsible for thousands of students' requirements, or, about publishing and about papers and green and gold and diamond access and all these different things. They can't even go close to what the whole aspect around research data management. Yeah, so we need definitely to support them. And then, of course, I've talked about the researchers and the scientists and their role in actually ensuring that, while it might take more time, ensuring that the processes and the procedures and that the research data management is done in a good way. So what can you do? A few actions for you. I think at the beginning of the session, about 4 of you said that you were Research Data Alliance members. It's a wonderful community. It's free, by the way, open to all as part of our ethos. What you give is what you get to the Research Data Alliance. So you can join. You are under no obligation to be working or anything, but you will receive all the information. You will be part of the community. You have an opportunity to get involved in any way. It's the community, by the way, that decide the different groups and activities that we work on. RDA has 3 mechanisms: working groups, interest groups, and communities of practice. The communities of practice are domain and disciplinary. And I am really excited. It's as hot off the press. We just yesterday launched a community of practice for earth, space and environmental sciences data, driven by some really amazing people from across the globe, some of them that are from the US, involved in trying to salvage this data. And you're more than welcome to join that. It's a space where they will hope to, a community of practice for RDA is a more informative and collaborative area where the community itself tries to put out as much information for that particular domain or disciplinary. The other one we have is agricultural data. It's a long-standing group in the Research Data Alliance. You could, of course, come to International Data Week. International Data Week is every 6 months, the Research Data Alliance organises a community meeting. They're working meetings where, all the different activities are advanced, if you like. It's a little like your annual meeting here. So of the community, it's of course cross-disciplinary, etc. But we do one fully virtual, one every year, and then every second year we have one with our partners, CoData and the World Data System, and we go around the globe because we are global organizations, and it's very important. And as it happens, next year it will be in this year, sorry, will be in October. We'll be bounding off to Brisbane, Australia. It's a wonderful opportunity actually to see not just the work that the Research Data Alliance is doing and understand that a bit more and get connected to the community, but also to go to the more traditional like workshops, etc. of the SCI DataCon. And it will also be online, but we strongly encourage in-person presence. So as I finish, I would like to go back to the party aspect. I don't want to finish in any way on a negative note, quite the opposite. I would like to raise the glass, if you like, and remember that as a domain and a discipline that are traditionally very good at open data and open sharing, you should toast yourselves and congratulate yourselves, but also advocate, please. Think about it, make available the data, highlight when in scientific presentations also where the data is, the research data management. It's an important part of your work and it should be recognized but also showcased so that others can get involved. So as we said, I think I hope you agree that if there's no data, there is no party. If there's no well-managed data, there is no party. So I'd like to thank you very much and raise my glass to you for listening to me this morning and for all the work that you're doing and for making the world a better place. Thank you so much.